What's going on, everybody? It's your boy NeoStarling, and I am back here with another podcast. So today I am actually going to be talking about The Never Paradox, which is book 2 from a series, a trilogy that T. Ellery Hodges created, narrated by Stephen Barnett. I was supposed to create it a while back. To be perfectly honest with you, I just had not been feeling very good. I got sick for a little while. I didn't have COVID, but I did get sick. I was also helping my girlfriend move, so there was like a lot of different things going on at the same time. I didn't really have the time, energy, nor wasn't really motivated to do many videos, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'm back, I'm better than ever, and I am ready to do this review. So, The Never Paradox, written by T. Ellery Hodges, narrated by Stephen Barnett. This is gonna be a recap. This is not gonna be a complete play-by-play of this entire story. No, I'm gonna go through it in a quick and concise way that makes sense, but narratively still flows fairly decent. I normally would write a script, but to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not very good with scripts, so I'm gonna go at it with my brain power here the best way I know how. So I hope you all enjoy it, so stay tuned. Alright, so basically we start off with our prologue. Hayer, which is an alien from another planet, he's actually a Borealis. He's the blonde man in the first book, who I didn't go into much detail in describing who he actually was. He is the alien that basically came to Earth, and he's thousands of years old, and he implanted this device inside of our protagonist, which is Jonathan Tibbs. And this device allows Jonathan to be amplified in a way on a physical level where he becomes extremely powerful physically. He's super fast, and he can fight these threats that are coming to Earth. So if you saw the previous video, you know that they are being attacked by this alien race called the Ferox. Basically, Hayer is speaking with his brother Malchior, and Malchior is actually a Ferox, but they're both brothers and they're both of the same race. They're both these beings called the Borealis. They each have a device implanted in them that amplifies them and actually keeps their consciousness alive in a host body. So Hayer is on Earth, and he took the form of a human, and Malchior took the form of a Ferox. So these two are basically playing intergalactic chess, right, where you have human versus Ferox. And what's going on here is that they're basically having a conversation about it right now. They're having a little back and forth discussion. There's like rules that are set to this. There are certain things that certain combatants are allowed to do and are not allowed to do. But basically the reason that they're speaking is because Malchior's son actually attacked Jonathan. He snuck through the gates, and Jonathan ended up killing him. So that caused Hayer to be like, wait, you know what? I gotta perform some damage control real quick. So that's what he ends up doing. So they end up having a conversation about that. Then, we kind of fast forward, and we're back where Jonathan now has a new job. He is no longer working with Mr. Flesher, which is his old boss. Jonathan is now working in this construction site where he's making more money because he's not getting paid to fight these aliens. It's sort of like a Spider-Man situation where he has to take photos of himself in order to actually support himself, because the aliens never considered what his finances would look like. So Jonathan had been paying for training lessons, buying all these protein supplements and whatnot, and just overall funding his survival, right? So a lot of that ends up happening. So Jonathan ends up having a situation where he gets activated while he's working, and he's racing to face this next Ferox, but as he gets to the battle, he suddenly gets teleported back to his regular body. So from the first book, this is something that I also did not clarify, but when they fight each other, they're you know what, I'll save that for later. So anyway, they go inside this he basically time travels back into his own body, right? Once that happens, he doesn't know what the hell happened, because he's supposed to keep his memories after his victories, and he actually didn't keep his memory, so something is up. So he's all nervous, and he's like, yo, what the hell's going on here? He wanted Hayer to give him a form of communicating in the event that he wasn't around. Jonathan ends up getting a message on his computer later on, and at first he thought that, oh, maybe it's this government agency, the Cell, which has been watching him, because since the first book's events, the government basically took a special interest, because there's a lot of people that are going through similar cases like Jonathan around the world. This blonde man, the alien, who we know as Hayer now, he is at the source of all of it. He's their mark, as they call him. So Jonathan thinks that maybe they're hacking his computer, but instead it's an artificial intelligence named Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean is the AI that helps Hayer facilitate the discovery of their new challengers, of the new people that are going to be taking over and having these implants implanted inside of their bodies. basically he tells him, hey, like, try not to draw any attention to yourself, but I'm communicating with you, so I don't want this government cell to know what's going on. So long story short, there's like a big exposition dump on what's going on. They have their talk and whatnot. Fast forward, and this girl shows up to Jonathan's house, right? This girl, she's this Brazilian girl. She got introduced very briefly at the end of the first book, and now she's more of a prominent character. Her name is Riley Silva. Riley shows up to his house talking to one of his roommates. When Jonathan sees her, he's like, who the hell are you? And she acts surprised and kind of hurt in a way, like her feelings genuinely got hurt because Jonathan didn't know who she was. So she obviously knew who he was, but he didn't know who she was. Right, so she ends up dipping. Fast forward, a lot of stuff going down. Jonathan's like, I don't know who the hell this girl is. So she ends up leaving. Her feelings are hurt. Moving on. So what ends up happening next is that, you know, as time progresses, Leah and Jonathan start getting involved a little more. Leah is the girl next door with her kid brother Jack. They're the ones that were introduced in the previous book. She is essentially Jonathan's love interest, but as we also know, she is a double agent because she's actually working with the cell trying to get more information from what had transpired. Apparently, the prologue from the first book, Peter, he was the guy that got killed by the Ferox in the beginning, and that was actually her brother. So ever since then, she's kind of wanted to find out what's going on. The thing is that she genuinely really does like Jonathan. So she's kind of caught in a catch-22. She's in this situation right now where she knows that she has a job to do, but at the same time, she genuinely has feelings for this guy. So, you know, they do the deed, they hook up, you know, a lot of stuff like that kind of goes down between them. You fast forward a little later on, Jonathan ends up getting activated again, but he gets activated while he was on a date with Leah. So now she's kind of like, hey, let me know what's going on. And he goes, you're not going to remember anyway. Just get off of me. Like, I got to go. And she made him promise to tell her, to make her believe him. And he ends up leaving. So he gets into this fight and he finds out that there's two Feroxes now. There's not just one. So he's like, wait a second. There's usually, you know, one for one person. He ends up going to fight him, and then he sees Riley, which is the girl that was at his garage earlier that he didn't recognize. She's also fighting. He now discovered that he's not alone. He actually has somebody else with him in order to help him fight, basically. That's what's going on. And he sees that she's extremely graceful. She can fight. She knows how to kick ass. She's like a legit fighter versus him that just like kind of trained for a couple of months so that he wouldn't die, right? Like, she knows what she's doing. She has like fancy footwork. She can flip. She can do all that fancy stuff. Those two end up fighting, and they tag team against the Ferox. They end up beating the Ferox, but not before Riley gets injured and Jonathan thought that she died. So he kind of spazzes out and like makes that Ferox into like mush. Now they're at this conundrum because he goes, yo, you should have told me, like I would have believed you. And she was like, yeah, but you know what? At the same time, I'm kind of tired of always being the only person that remembers what's happening here, because only one of them remembers. And she's the one that always ends up remembering. So they kind of had to figure out a way to like break these stones towards where they can both end up remembering. So long story short, the stones end up getting broken, and Jonathan, who was with Leah previously, he gets zapped right back to that moment. But this time he remembered what happened. So he was like, yo, I gotta go. He bolts out of there. He goes to where Riley is located, and Riley looks like she was gonna potentially do something horrible to herself. She was really down and out in her luck, and you could say she was kind of feeling a little suicidal, like she was just gonna check out. She had like this counter full of these pills that she was gonna take, and Jonathan's like, yo, chill, like I remember, don't do anything. And it was crazy because she actually didn't remember the last encounter. So this time he ended up remembering, which sort of sealed the link. It sealed his bonds. Now he remembers everything. Well, not everything, but he remembers that previous experience. So now he knows that they're not alone. But the first thing he does is he's like, yo, I gotta get you out of here. This isn't safe. Like you're being watched and you don't even know it. She is none the wiser, obviously, because she doesn't know what's going on. They end up going to his house. You know, it's a little weird because he told his roommate that he didn't know who this girl was. Now he's like, yo, man, she's going to sleep on my bed, but I'm going to sleep on the couch. It's okay. You know, I'll tell you all about it later. I do really know her, blah, blah. And it's kind of a little funny because he goes through life and death struggles almost every other like week or every other day, but he still has to find ways to like lie to his roommate so that they won't discover like his secret identity or whatever, which I actually thought was kind of hilarious. We fast forward a little bit, and we get to the government agency now, which is the cell. And you have Olivia, who I didn't really get too deep into in the first book, but Olivia actually, she's the one that's coordinating all of this. She's the one that has all the manpower and tells everybody what to do. She's very serious, very professional. she had acquired this other gentleman named Rivers. Rivers is also like an expert at like lip reading and whatnot, because none of their technology works. Like whenever they try to listen in on the conversations that are happening in Jonathan's house, it doesn't work because Hayer actually utilizes his AI to screw with the frequency. So as a result, they can't hear anything. They're thinking outside of the box at this point, and they're trying to bring in other resources in order to help facilitate what's going on here, because they do want to capture Hayer. They don't know what's going on with him. They think he's a threat. You know, you fast forward a little later on, you have this weird like love triangle kind of going on right now, because Leah's like, wait, who is this girl? But she kind of knows who the girl is because they brought her in. The sub brought Leah back in, and she saw the footage of like Jonathan leaving with Riley, and they sort of explained to her that, hey, like he just kind of showed up, and you know, at the same time, like they both kind of started acting weird. So now they're starting to see like some sort of connection here. So Leah in reality is not angry at Jonathan. She's not on some like, oh, he's cheating on me kind of deal. It's more like, I know what's going on, but I have to pretend to be a jealous girlfriend. It's a really weird situation for her. And you know what? I actually feel very sympathetic for Leah, because she might be portrayed as like someone that's sort of an ass, you know, but I honestly think she's just being put in a weird situation, being that her brother was a victim of this mark, and she kind of doesn't want to see the same thing happen to Jonathan, but she's also not really supposed to be on his side at the same time, because they don't know what's happening here. So, you know, we're gonna fast forward a little bit more. There's just a lot of filler going on here, and you know, Jonathan's mother starts getting a little more involved. She actually ends up showing up because Jonathan had been ignoring all her calls. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to come to you because you clearly don't want to communicate with me. So now he's sort of juggling all these people in his life while also trying to keep his secret identity a secret. Hayer and Jonathan end up having this extremely like long exposition dump where they start really sort of getting down to the nitty gritty of like what's really happening. Now Hayer is volunteering more information to Jonathan because of the circumstances. He's letting him know, hey man, you kind of killed my nephew in a way, because he killed his brother's son. So now Malchior kind of has it out for you. So he's going to want to send more assassins your way. He's going to get a little more creative to get rid of him. Jonathan's like, wait, but I didn't even know, you know, I didn't know that was his kid. Like, what the hell's going on? And then he's also upset because Riley and him were never supposed to meet. You know, they sort of got together and they created this bond. And now that they're together, they're actually faster, they're stronger. They're really powerful. Like picture like a Dragon Ball Z fusion, but without the characters fusioning, but having the amplified power from them just being around each other. But with them being around each other, they also have feelings for each other that are not natural. Like these love and emotions and everything that's like sort of seeping into them, it's not really something that should be going on. It's only happening purely out of the fact that they both have a device installed that are supposed to be linked to each other. So it's kind of creating this like artificial love, and it's really messing with both of them. But Riley doesn't seem to mind. She kind of really does like Jonathan. Like I said, whether it be from the device or not, she's totally down with just letting it happen. But Jonathan's like, nah, man, I got Shorty Leah over here in the background. So huge exposition dump. They end up finding out a little bit more about what actually really happens when they go into the Never. So the Never is basically this battlefield that's created where both combatants go in and only one comes out. And what's crazy is that while they're in the Never, it actually perfectly recreates the world that they're in. It's a shadow world, sort of. It's not the real world. And time flows differently in there. So they're not actually time traveling. They're going into an alternate dimension. Every time Jonathan fights a Ferox, they're literally fighting in another dimension, which is just a carbon copy of Earth. And the reason they have to squash those stones at the end of their fight is because if they stay in that world, it'll just crumble, it'll deteriorate. The people in that world will start kind of going nuts, they'll lose their minds because they're not real people, they're just shadow copies. And if Jonathan wins, he goes back to his body the moment before activation. But if a Ferox wins, he ends up finding out that the Ferox actually have to kill these combatants in order for them to breed. So it sort of makes them a sympathetic enemy, because Hayer and Malchior's people, the Borealis, sort of experimented with them a long time ago. And now as a result, the male Ferox cannot achieve fertility unless they're in combat, basically. They have to be in like a life and death struggle so that the females of their species could be turned on enough to want to copulate. Jonathan ends up finding this out and he's like, damn, like this is kind of insane. Malchior has it out for him. A lot of crazy stuff ends up going on. Jonathan's mother, like I said, gets more involved. They kind of have a little drive. They have a little like heart-to-heart talk and they drive out. and they end up finding out more about Jonathan's dad. They find this like sort of lockbox from Jonathan's father, and Jonathan manages to open it. When he opens it, he actually finds a weapon. He finds like a ball and chain and the engraving Doomsday on it. So Jonathan's like, wait a second, this is the same engraving that Hayer put on my weapon and he put on Riley's weapon. It's crazy because now he knows, at that moment he found out that his dad was just like him. So, you know, a lot of emotions start flaring up from this point on. He starts kind of getting upset at Hayer. He's like, why didn't you tell me? He goes, you know, you were never really supposed to know. You know, this is just kind of the way we do things. It gets really crazy. It ends up culminating when Grant's shadow actually stepped into the portal stone being crushed when Riley and Jonathan had won one of their battles at one point. And when his shadow stepped in there with them, he actually got transported to the Ferosian Plain, the home of the Ferox. And Malchior kidnaps him, and he kind of explains to him, hey, you know what, I'm gonna use this guy as a pawn. So he kind of tells him that, you know, that they're really all evil and that the Ferox are good. He manipulates him, and he ends up installing one of the devices inside of Grant's shadow to sort of, you know, use him as his extra muscle. Right, and it ends up being really insane because Hayer prior to this had gotten captured when he went to go visit his brother, and his brother was like, hey, let's just have a little like sparring match. So they spar, and you know, Malchior ends up getting the better of him after Hayer dropped his guard, but Malchior didn't really want to spar. He wanted to hold him prisoner so that he can go after Jonathan himself and not have Hayer get in the way. Right, because Hayer was sort of functioning as his like guardian angel. You know, now Malchior knows that he has like a soft spot for this like particular human. Grant's shadow actually ends up finding out that Hayer is in the body of his father, and he's now upset because he's like, yo man, you should have told me, you know, like I would have believed you. Why did you leave me? Blah blah. Grant has a lot of like daddy issues. He has a lot of issues with women as well. And it kind of amplifies more in his shadow because his shadow's deteriorating more and more. So his shadow's just kind of going insane. So now he sees Jonathan as his rival. He kind of hates Jonathan. He blames him for like what's happened in his life. Malchior ends up going to Earth with Grant in order to fight Jonathan, right? And it ends up becoming this crazy ass fight. Like these guys are like having an epic Dragon Ball-esque fight like in the city. You know, Grant is fighting Jonathan while Riley's actually fighting Malchior. You know, Hayer ends up escaping. He gets back to Earth. Not really back to Earth. He gets back to the Never, but he's injured now, so he can't really do anything. Jonathan ends up getting the better of Malchior, but Hayer tells him, yo, you can't kill him. If you kill him, that's going to be the end of the world, because Seed, which is the other artificial intelligence, which is the counterpart to Mr. Clean, Seed is basically Malchior's AI. So he says, yo, if you kill Malchior, Seed is automatically designated to open up all the gates and just have all of the Ferosians just sort of invade Earth. So he goes, if you kill him, you know, this is no good. You can't kill him. You know, and Jonathan was angry because he wanted to kill him because Malchior actually ends up killing Riley. And that just, you know, made Jonathan go insane, because you got to keep in mind that he's also bonded to her now. It all ends up culminating when Jonathan and Hayer manage to get back to Earth, and Hayer's all bloody and beat up. He can't really like do anything, and Jonathan's angry, and like he holds Riley, and right at the moment where he tries to like warn her what's gonna happen, she just disappears right in front of him. But it was crazy because Jonathan's roommates, except for Paige and Jonathan's mother and Leah, were all there. So they saw Riley disappear, and now Leah's catching flashbacks because that's exactly what happened to her brother. So she's like, Jonathan, like what happened? Like tell me what happened to Riley. And then out of nowhere, you just see the cell like bust in there because now Hayer's injured, so now they can capitalize. And Jonathan's like, Mr. Clean, like get us out of here, but he couldn't do anything because his frequency was being blocked by somebody else that they had brought in earlier. And it ends up becoming crazy. So now they all get captured, and Jonathan doesn't know what the hell to do. You know, he's not super strong in that form because he's just a regular human when he's not activated. And Hayer's also injured, so he couldn't teleport out of there. So the cell take them, and they take the roommates as well. They took Leah, you know, pretend took her, right? But she's not really kidnapped. So, you know, this is nearing the end of the story. What ends up happening is that we kind of fast forward to this other dude named Anthony. He's this like super intelligent billionaire philanthropist, Tony Stark like character or whatever. And Mr. Clean ends up getting in contact with him, and he goes, hey man, like he's been captured. And Anthony's like, oh damn. So, you know, now they have to create like a contingency to like free them. And that's where the book ends. Yeah, I know, it's insane. I apologize for this format of doing it, but to be perfectly honest, I feel like I explain things a little better when I don't write them down, because writing a script and me speaking the script doesn't seem natural to me at the very least. And I wanted this to be a recap. This is not a play-by-play telling of the entire story. This is just the main beats that you need to know before you get ready to read the third book or listen to it. And to be perfectly honest, you probably all have. But I did tell Todd that I would release this video, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So I hope you all liked it. You know, if you feel that you gained any value from this video and you listened to the first part, now you're ready to sort of jump into the third book, then, you know, go for it, man. You know, if you feel that you like this, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, do the damn thing, help a brother out. I'm starting to feel better now, so I will be producing more content. I'm going to be producing different types of content. I'm going to be interviewing people and just getting a lot of stuff done, because honestly, I've been pretty motivated lately and I'm ready, man. So let's do it. Anyway, with that said, I've been NeoStarling. You are all awesome, and don't ever, ever let anyone tell you different. Signing off.